My dear students, welcome to the course of Architecture and Town Planning. I am your teacher Ravinder Kumar Khiani, Assistant Professor, Department of Architecture and Planning, NED University of Engineering and Technology, Karachi, Sindh, Pakistan. Today the topic of our discussion is phases of planning and principles of planning. The phases of planning is that there are various steps through which planning is done, and the planning is done on some principles. So we are going to discuss today the phases of planning and principles of planning. Let's begin our lecture. Introduction. It is a grave reality that planning is a process of continuous efforts to address increasing number of problems over the period of time. Because as city grows, the problem also grows, and planner has to deal with increasing number of problems over the period of time. A planner desires to address these problems with a vision for the future. This vision of planner required a flexibility of ideas which could incorporate the changing needs of the society. However, to begin from the beginning, there involved some preconceived principles of planning which could help in decision making and development of a hierarchy or a phases by which planning is done in an appropriate manner. What are principles of planning? A town or city planner can be defined as an artist of rationality with reference to human activity and spatial arrangement. It means whatever a planner decides must be reasonable and logical. Thus, the basic principle of planning is the logic and logical explanation of all the actions taken and decisions made. Secondly, the process of planning the human environment requires an ability to analyze and comprehend existing situation in the context of physical, social, economic, and political realities of the urban context. Therefore, second basic principles of planning is the analysis and interpretation of the current scenario with the acquired skills and intellect to plan for the future of the city. Thirdly, by definition, the concept of planning can be defined as a pre-thinking and pre-arranging things before an event takes place so as good result can be achieved. Thus, the principles of planning vary with each context and author who defines these principles of planning. Let's go ahead and see. There are different authors who have written about the principles of planning. One of them is the G.K. Hiraskar. So according to G.K. Hiraskar, the main principles of planning may summarize in three words: health, convenience, and beauty. A city should have, or citizens should have a healthy environment, and they should have convenience and beauty in the city. From health, he means promotion and creation of healthy environment for both rich and poor to live, work, and relax. This will be possible when use of land may be appropriate or the division of land for various uses and zones of the city may be made appropriate. For convenience, he means the fulfillment of various needs of the community, such as social needs of people, economic needs of people, cultural needs of people, and the basic principle of providing public utilities to the people. From beauty means to pressure the individuality of the town and aesthetics in the design of all physical elements in the city. City should look beautiful and please our eyes. Similarly, there is another author known as Abir Bandi Upadhyay. Both of them have written the books on town planning. Abir Bandi Upadhyay has written the books textbook on town planning, and G.K. Hiraskar just written a book town planning. Well, so Abir Bandi Upadhyay defines that principles of planning may vary with each definition of planning established by an author. Every new book of planning offers at least one new variation in the definitions of urban planning. Thus, the principles of planning are fluid in nature and vary as per time and space, context, and the people who establish them logically and rationally. We are continuing with principles of planning. In current time, The planners established the principles of planning from four major directions. That is through qualitative techniques or quantitative techniques, aesthetic considerations, political and behavioral imperatives, and social welfare concerns. These are the four major, you can say, perspectives through which planning is done nowadays. In each context, the principle of planning differs and show its own rationale. The quantitative technique means the physical design at city scale and at many other scales by use of mathematical models, electronic data processing, system analysis, and more scientific underpinning to formulate the public policy. The aesthetic considerations means the principle of design applied to the physical open spaces, buildings, and activities, or more appropriately, it can be described that aesthetic principles of planning include the design by the government of an entire city, or the control of key facades of the city, like the major arteries and boulevard, the building should be looking good, and then the design of publicly owned properties like public buildings, parks, and highways, they should be useful for the people and made beautiful. And rebuilding of the deteriorated areas of the city via urban renewal, beautification plans, and pay for the open spaces. The government should provide more open spaces or public spaces. So these are the four things through which city is made beautiful. From political and behavioral imperative means that planners are not aloof from the policies of the government and other people and are attached with the local government and planning commissions because they seek to implant their plans within urban spaces. And as you know that we have made the master plans for Karachi and Lahore, I have shown you earlier, but due to the political and behavioral imperatives, these could not be implemented properly. So the issue is that the planner must be an artist of rationality and look at the political and behavioral imperatives, and based on that, he developed the design and development of the city. Thus, the principles of planning from this viewpoint establish a link of power structure of community, professionals, and public institutions to implement public proposals. It means that there should be a power structure of community or people or professionals. They come together and influence the public institution to improve the public planning and overall planning of the city so that it can serve both rich and the poor. The citizen participation is the basic principles of planning to develop a workable program for physical development in any context. The social welfare concerns means establishing such principles of planning in which not only the physical improvement occurs, but it should also address the issue of social inequality, economic inequality, poverty, discrimination, lack of education, and physical deterioration of urban poor and low income group within the city. These are the social welfare concerns which must be addressed in the planning process. Conclusively, if one can summarize the principles of planning, it will be evident that different rationales give impetus to planning principles, and it is a problem specific, time specific, location specific, community specific, institution specific, and based on the decision makers and all the stakeholders of the society for which planning is to be carried out. So, principles of planning develop context to context, how the societies, how the people are, and how they are living with each other, what are their engagement with each other, and what are their relationship with each other. That matters a lot in city planning. Now look at the phases of planning. The phases of planning can also be defined as the planning process. The planning process requires a logical sequence of interrelated facts on which an argument or a scheme is formulated, tested, and proved and implemented. In 1947, Town and Country Planning Act of UK defines an approach of planning which was based on three logical steps or phases. That is survey, analysis, and plan. At first, we must survey our city or existing context or natural or built environment, analyze it, and basically after analysis of the social and ecological and other perspective, we plan the city. It results in static, inflexible, one for all time master plans with the provision of 5-yearly reviews. So in UK, when they do this survey analysis and plan, the master plan developed and 5-year master plans were developed for the cities. However, its process was incapable of incorporating the changing events because cities do not remain static. People do not remain static. Everything is dynamic and they are changing it over the period of time. And the changing needs and wants of the people, the changing requirements of the technology, the changing requirements of the environment, and the changing requirements of the economic system must be incorporated in the planning process. The basic reason behind which was the process of planning beginning till end means that they have thought that planning is just a project they can start and they end it. But planning is a continuous process. It is not just a project that you can start and make and complete and go away. No, this is not going to happen. The only thing that is going to happen is the change. Change does matter. And city is changing, population increasing, problems are increasing, and the situations are changing. So considering all that, a planning should be done. Whereas planning is such discipline of knowledge which is never ending due to changing circumstances and dynamic context which require planning processes to be continuative in nature. It should not present a final definite panacea. However, it should be able to foresee, guide, and influence the change over the period of time. So planning is concerned about future. Therefore, planning process take a long-term perspective of short-term occurrences and have adaptability to review, modify, and apply. The aim of planning is not to specify the nature and size and the condition of the future, but rather planning establish a procedure or a framework to manipulate the future events in desired direction. To achieve this objective, it is necessary to clarify major aims of the project, or in other words, what are the desires of the social, economic, political, and physical directions for the city. These aims and objectives of plan will provide a standard through which the performance of a plan can be judged and alternative plans can be developed. As the planning process needs a continuity, adaptability, and a revision, therefore planning decisions shall be flexible and requires a cyclic process. On the right, you can see this cyclic process that we should set a goals, gather data, analyze data, create a plan, implement the plan, monitor the plan, and again set the goals. And this way planning process going on and on. Or you can understand the existing situation and discover something new that has been happened and happening, and then design, and then afterwards you just redefine or refine the overall planning process. So in this way, planning have different stages or cyclic process. This cyclic process can be demonstrated by some interrelated steps, which can be termed as a planning process or phases of planning, planning. Yes. So you have seen these phases of planning, that is goal setting and gathering data, analyzing data, creating plans, implementing plans, and monitoring the plans. So there are various opinions regarding the nature and number of steps involved in the planning process. However, according to John Radcliffe, he is also one of the author of the town planning. There are 7 steps of planning process, or the planning process can be outlined in 7 phases. Phase 1. The first phase of planning process is surveying and mapping of the context and its appraisal. How the city is in existing condition of the city, how it looks like currently. It means to identify the individuals organizations, institutions, stakeholders, and activities of any context in which planning might function to redress any imbalance or anomaly of that context. For example, if you analyze the city and you find that there are huge hump of garbage in the city, and you wanted to remove it because it is creating unhealthy conditions. So that is the first thing, that you survey, map, and identify the stakeholders, who are the people who are behind this issue, what is the issue, and how we can solve it. That is the first phase of the planning. Phase 2. The second phase of planning process is to formulate a broad-based community goals. What community wants, what people want, which reflects the overall demands and desires of the community at large. Means whoever is going to live in the city and work in the city and enjoy in the city must have some goals. And based on people's goals, planning is to be done. Or test the political temperature and the criteria through which plan shall be assessed. Because without political backing, a plan cannot be implemented, no matter how powerful you are. But political backing is very important in order to implement any plan, or people's involvement is very much necessary. For example, to provide better and standard of housing throughout the local authority area, or to ensure that adequate open spaces shall be provided to the community at a walking distance. For these broad goals, the tactical decision can be made, and we should address that what actually people want. Phase 3. The third phase of planning process is the identification of the objectives, which is more precise to achieve a community goal. For example, to achieve better standard of housing, one requires a policy of rehabilitation or redevelopment, or the combination of both, for provision of high quality standard or better standard of housing to the people. This can be done through public or private sector development or through joint ventures. So we have to analyze that. The establishment of community goals and objectives require an extensive consultative process and public-private partnership to develop priorities of the society. That is, to develop more schools or install new sewage system. So priority is very important. What should be done first? Phase 4. The phase 4th of planning process is to develop possible alternatives, which means the established goals and objectives shall be examined and complied and compiled, and course of action should be developed, that on the basis of the goals and objective, what actions should be taken. There might be more than one course of actions which are constrained by the financial, legal, social, and political ground realities. Because sometimes you cannot have the appropriate financial support, or legal support, or social support, or political ground realities does not lead you to make appropriate changes in your city. In this phase of planning, all the components of solution to each objective which can fulfill a goal may be analyzed and tested, and based on that, decisions are made for the course of action. In this way, the potential policies are formulated and alternative strategies for the city are established. Phase 5. The phase 5 of the planning process is the evaluation of all the course of actions with a comparative analysis and measurements of the situation. In this phase, some strategies will be eliminated immediately due to physical, social, economic, and political constraints or reasons. And based on that, re-decision making is taking place. Or you can say that course of action is changed. Whereas other strategies may require detailed analysis such as cost benefit analysis, financial appraisal, and goal achievement metrics, or SWOT analysis. SWOT means strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. So for all course of action for the planning process, whether you want to make a housing scheme or make an industrial zone, or whatever decision you make for the city, requires a cost benefit analysis, the financial appraisal, and goal achievement metrics, that how we will achieve the goal. and strength, weakness, and opportunity and threats of the project. And that analysis is very important. And this evaluation will assess and test the performance of each strategy or policy with respect to each objective and goal of the plan. Phase 6. The sixth phase of planning process is implementation of a chosen plan. This implementation phase has two major effects. One is the positive action on behalf of the planning authority, and other is the stimulation of private sector enterprise to public sector effort. Because private sector wanted to earn money, public sector is there to provide services. So there must be a compromise between the two. In this phase, a large amount of control and regulation over development takes place, where private sector is supported and informal sector is restricted, because government do not have control of all the city and all the people of the city, and there is an informal sector and underground, you can say, people who are not working according to law. So they are also there to provide different kinds of services, and they also are, you can say, main hindrance in the planning process. So they must also be addressed. Phase 7. Seventh phase of planning process is the monitoring and the review of the existing plans, projects, and execution and implementation. Because once the plan is operational, it is an object need or abject need to scrutinize the plan with continuous surveillance regarding its working and impact it generates in the city or the people. And based on that, decision making should be made. So in this monitoring stage, the performance of policies is judged through its effectiveness and efficiency, that whether we have planned well or not, and what are its positive and negative effects on the people and the community, and whether there is a resistance against it or not. So however, it may also address the changing circumstances and the adjustment in the plan accordingly. For example, in original plan, it was indicated that the first 5 years population growth shall be 100,000 and the physical expansion shall be taking place accordingly. However, after 2 years, the growth of population has increased manifold. Then it requires adjustment to provide all the developments proportionately. Thus, a careful and continuous monitoring become a regular feature of planning process, and there shall be given permission in plan for additional planning within the plan. Especially, it become a major issue in planning process that a change in political power occurs at local or national level or provincial level, which changes the whole scenario of the plan, because the overall goals and objectives may have changed with the change of the government, because government is selected by the people or elected by the people, and people have a different idea now. So we have to look at the existing ground realities and political powers, and based on that, decision making changes. Thus, such kind of ever-changing factors make the planning process an endless cycle with a dynamic and ever-changing situation, because situation did not remain the same. Conclusion. So what we conclude from this? Conclusively, the planning process can be summarized in a series of phases and steps, such as preliminary study, in which we do the contextual appraisal, how the existing condition of the city are, then formulation of the goals with the public participation and by taking into consideration the views of people. Third, identification of objectives, what is the public demand, and details of the policy and the plan that we develop. Then fourth, preparation of alternative strategies that include various courses of actions, that we should not stick on only one course of action. There can be various ways to do things, and that must also be analyzed. Then evaluation, fifth stage, that is the strategy for the enforcement of the plan by considering the physical, social, economic, and political ground realities. Sixth, implementation, and how the implementation of the project is taking place. Whether it is only made by the public sector, government will make it, or there will be public-private partnership, or there should be regulation and control over development, and the private sector will be encouraged. So what should be the implementation policy? How the plan will be implemented? And finally, monitoring and review. That is redefining the goals and objectives with changing socio-political situation of any context. Concerning principles of planning, we always focus on the large cities and metropolitan cities. However, we forget about the secondary cities that are also a major part of the national economy. For example, in Sindh, there are more than 100 secondary cities, and we do not talk more about the planning of these cities. So let's look at how internationally secondary cities are focused and why planning them is so significant.
As the world's urban population increases, the number of people living in small and medium-sized cities is growing. Until recently, however, the importance of secondary cities has been largely neglected in national urban and regional development policies, as well as in public investment in infrastructure and services. As a result, their development potential has often been overlooked, leaving significant inequities in the growth and development of cities. The gap will widen unless governments introduce policies to foster more equitable economic growth within systems of secondary cities.
The role of secondary cities is critical because this is where the bulk of urban growth is taking place. It's where numerically the majority of the world's urban population lives. It's also the site where backlogs are the most intense and where capacity is the weakest. And if we do not look at a system of cities within a national economy, in other words, the relationship between small, medium and large cities which join up into one national economy, and it's really only urban development that has got the lifting capacity to bring a national economy out of poverty. So if we ignore secondary cities, we're going to ignore a significant part of the economy.
Secondary cities are medium-sized administrative, political, industrial, transportation and trading centres. They range in population from 100,000 to 2.5 million, but they may be larger or smaller depending on the size of the nation's population. Secondary cities play a crucial role as economic, social and logistics hubs within national systems of cities. They link more than half of the world's population living in smaller cities, towns and rural areas to markets, materials, goods and services needed or produced in large metropolitan economies and vice versa. Their level of connectivity is key.
Secondary cities play a very significant role in the system of cities. They represent about 40% of the world's urban population. However, in terms of their contribution to national economies, it's much less than the larger cities. Secondary cities are part of a system of cities. They provide the link between the rural economy, which is about 45% of where the world's populations live, and they provide the network which primarily feed the major economies of the world and the network of the trading systems of cities throughout the world.
A well-functioning and connected national system of cities is essential for growth and development.
The challenges of the economic development being the road network, lack of financial support to the local markets, lack of technical opportunities like training, entrepreneurial skills for people. We don't have that industrial area for people to come and then learn technical things that can boost their local economic things that they are doing. So normally you see that people are ready to work, people are in the business, but the business are very small because they don't have the financial assistance to expand it, to be able to get the thing done so everybody will be on board. Like if it is bigger, you'll be able to employ more people.
The reality in many countries suggests, however, that secondary and small cities are not fully integrated in this new economic geography of cities. Many are struggling to manage urbanization, attract investment, and meet the demand for jobs, housing, infrastructure, and basic urban services.
Las ciudades intermedias no se pueden pensar más como solas. Se tienen que empezar a pensar como una gran cadena de valor regional. Y cómo se relacionan y qué es lo que cada una contribuye a esa cadena de valor. Están en un momento clave que si no se suben a este tren y comienzan a trabajar en pos de ser parte de este sistema, van a quedar como un lagging region, ¿no? Como estas regiones atrasadas de alguna manera. Por eso creo que es un momento crítico para eso.
Cities Alliance has made a significant contribution to improve knowledge on how to better manage and connect secondary cities in rapidly urbanizing countries to foster more equitable growth and development. The most recent publication, Connecting Systems of Secondary Cities, highlights the need to improve connectivity and collaboration, which in turn requires investment in strategic infrastructure and services. Connectivity can be improved through a number of strategies, including strengthening networks, crucial to improve communication, exchange, and movement within systems of cities. Building strategic infrastructure. Hard and soft infrastructure is necessary for networks to function and supports the fundamental drivers of economic development. Developing partnerships which create collaborative advantage.
There's got to be a recognition that we are moving away from a system of country-to-country trading to city-to-city trading. So therefore national government should be encouraging much more competitive structure of cities, but collaborative competition, not necessary competition of one-on-one, but how cities can collaborate in order to achieve the scale to produce goods and services which they can exchange.
A balanced system of cities with strong secondary cities offers tremendous potential for regional and national economic development. Connecting Systems of Secondary Cities features new insights and case studies to show how this potential might be realized. Visit citiesalliance.org to check out this and other resources in support of the development of systems of secondary cities.
So you have seen how the people around the world are thinking about secondary cities and making them a part of their country's economy. I hope you have understood very well. These are the references which I have used for this lecture. Thank you for watching. For lecture notes, visit my blog www.townplanninglectures.blogspot.com. Now the lecture is over, so have fun, good luck, and goodbye.